in the air. We opted to go with our voices au naturel rather than using a microphone. So do come where you can hear us, and eventually you'll want to turn around and appreciate the view from the bench, which is not the post road, but is actually the grove of trees and the church. Welcome. It has been our practice when we gather at the Labyrinth to begin our gathering with a Cherokee greeting. And Betsy Gillespie will offer that greeting for us this morning.
This is actually an Aboriginal greeting.
Thank you.
That is used and has been for many thousands of years on labyrinths that are in Australia. And they say, "Hello, divine oneness. We stand here within you, the special group of your beings. We thank you for this day. We thank you for each other. I thank you for me. We dedicate our day to the honor and purpose of oneness. We ask that everything we need be provided for. We ask that everything we do today, say today, hear today, be only in the highest good, in my highest good, in the highest good for all concerned, and in the highest good for all of life everywhere throughout the universe."
I want to introduce you to members of the family that you may or may not know. Freddie and Russ Brenneman have 3 children, and they are Matt and Amy and Andrew. And with Matt today are Ava and Charlie. And with Amy are Bodie and Charlotte. And is there anybody else you want to honor?
My mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law right there.
Mother-in-law right there.
Sister-in-law and her friend.
Joyce.
Yes.
They're right there.
Tracy and Laura.
They're right here.
They're also family.
And Tracy and Laura.
Yes.
Well, we're so glad to have you here. Freddie, though we would have loved to see her, opted not to make the trip. But if you come back inside with us, you will get to see her on film. She's recorded a special greeting for you all as part of this gathering today. And she misses you all and sends her love. I would invite members of the family to just say a word about Russell Brenneman, who is responsible for our gathering today.
Well, just really quick, Allison asked, why the bench and why here? And as to the first question, my dad really liked to sit down. I'm not kidding. He also really liked to nap. So if ever you are sitting and get drowsy, that is his spirit. That's his little fairy dust. There's a series of pictures. They love to travel, and there's a series of pictures. My dad napping in France, my dad napping in England. He loved napping at Tanglewood, that big lawn. And once he was part of this study for why certain public spaces were more inviting than others, and they spent a lot of money, and they looked at demographics, and they looked at city planning. And I said, what was the big takeaway? And he said, the big takeaway is people go when there's a place to sit. So I'm not kidding. So that's why we decided here, this bench. Why here? You all know how much he loved all of you, and he loved this church, and we thought it would be beautiful to have something in the heart of this church. And the only other thing I want to say really quick is my father passed away about a month before the election. He was very concerned about the election. Many well-wishing people have said to me, it's so good he didn't see this. And I disagree. I think he would have been nimble and creative and continued the work. And I also think it occurred to me yesterday that I had a thought of him during World War II being very scared, and he had push pins on what was going on with the war. He had been through other big problematic times, and I think he knew that we were ready for this one, and he just passed that baton right into our hand, just a clean break right before the election. So I think of him a lot, and with the work that we have in front of us.
I have not said this out loud to the Brenneman family yet, but it was perhaps 6 hours after the bench was put in place that I saw the first person sitting on it. And I've seen several people sitting on the bench since it was put in place a couple of weeks ago. And the thing that struck struck me that I had not anticipated is that it's become a kind of sentry for the labyrinth, which is not visible unless you come up right to it. So you could walk past on the lawn and have no idea that there is a sacred space here. But now there's a bench, and the bench invites you to wander over and to discover the labyrinth. So it's a real gift in its placement, and I want to thank you for that. Do you want to say a word about the plaque that will be added to the bench, Matthew?
So the plaque that you see on the bench is actually a placeholder. I designed this nice bronze plaque, and it will be eventually fixed, but FedEx, through its wisdom, couldn't find the address, and the plaque went back to West Virginia. So at some point, Peter McGurry, our caretaker, will come and affix a proper bronze plaque that will supposedly like a 200-year plaque. So the idea is that this bench is going to be here for a very long time and will probably outlive most of us. And I hope that the grandchildren of these guys get to know this bench.
And the line on the bench, apart from Russell's name, is?
Oh, the line on the bench. So there's a quotation without attribution, because it's fairly well known, probably by most of you. The quotation is, "In wildness is the preservation of the world," and it's from Thoreau, and probably one of his most famous quotes about the importance of preserving wildness and wilderness and the woods and the fields that Dad loves so much. And I think that I was saying to somebody else in the social hall that my father's notion of stewardship and conservation was very much aligned and allied to his Christianity. They were seamless, and so to have this bench underneath these beautiful maple trees on this beautiful lawn is in keeping, I think, with the spirit that he represented for me anyway, which was simultaneously about that, but also about this.
May I invite those of you gathered who remember Russell Brenneman just to offer up a word or a phrase that reminds you of him, that helps you to describe him, that together we might invoke his memory. How do you recall Russ Brenneman today? Best conversation.
Yeah.
He responded. We thought he was out.
I remember Russ telling us at church when we had environmental meetings that he had two questions he would ask of his undergraduate students in environmental law at Trinity College. One was, ask yourself, how much is enough? And the second question, I'm not quite sure about. And if anybody else remembers, that would be great. That's the one I remember, and it's always perfectly,
Russ asked his students, ask yourself how much is enough.
She can't
She
remember.
can't remember. If anybody, we're going to crowdsource that one, so if anybody remembers the second question that he asked his students, we'll get back to it.
Well, what I want to say is, when I know my grandpa, I met him 2 times, and when he passed away, I really talked to him 2 times. But when my whole family met him, I was so excited when everyone was coming, and my brother was really so excited to meet my grandpa, and I was really proud of my whole family.
Yes, Cynthia.
The word I think of Russ is kindness, kindness, kindness.
Kindness, kindness. 3 words for us. Thank you. Yes.
I served on the Board of Deacons with Russ, and he was a very spiritual man and a very kind man, and he had a great twinkle in his eye, and I enjoyed him.
And building on top of that, also on the Board of Deacons with Russ, wonderful gatherings. Look forward to the monthly meetings, and you don't often look forward to a monthly meeting, but when Russ was in the room, it was really, really wonderful. What a kind guy, and had a real good-natured sense of ribbing and sense of humor, so always kept me on my toes, and really enjoyed that about him.
Jane.
I would like to talk about Russell because Russell and my husband were very good friends. And when George was so sick, Russell would come over every day and he would read to him, or he would pray or whatever. And if George had to be in the hospital, Russell went to the hospital every day. And he was just so sweet and so caring. And we all loved him so much.
I love your dad. He was so special. He had a way of connecting and being present when you talked to him. And we didn't have a lot of involvement together, but it was always a special little moment when, we'd say hi, give a smile, give a hug. He was always there. Very sweet.
His ability to be present in a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost said this during my sermon and then didn't, but Russell Brenneman is one of the people who held me accountable to my vocation in a way that felt like a remarkable privilege to be.
We also want to thank Allison for being so present when Dad was ill, and the week before he died, when he wasn't, it was this. We thought he was doing better, but he actually wasn't. They put him in a room where he was